Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S66066, Amazing Magnetism, Chapter 4. From the inside of Mr. O'Neill's hand, we heard his muffled voice. Okay class, Mr. O'Neill said as he dumped us on a table. Now that you have all magnetized your needles, Andrew is going to help me demonstrate what the shape of a magnetic field looks like. Gather round. Mr. O'Neill's class gathered in a circle around us. They looked awfully big and scary, staring down at us. Class, watch carefully as Andrew spreads the iron filing out on a piece of paper. By noticing where the filings go, you will see where the magnet creates a magnetic field, said Mr. O'Neil. He poured us into Andrew's outstretched hands. Be careful not to touch any of the iron filings to the magnet. Those filings are so small you might never get them off. Now I was really worried. We were at Andrew's mercy. Magnetic field tree. Andrew tossed us onto a piece of paper and held the bar magnet underneath us. Wow, we all yelled as we suddenly got pushed and pulled around. I tried to stay where I was because I wanted to keep Mr. O'Neill's class from getting the answer, but the pull was irresistible. It felt like something was pulling me by my head and my feet at the same time, and it wasn't just that I was moving. My insides seemed to be turning around. It was worse than the wildest roller coaster I'd ever been on. Oh, groaned Arnold, why is my stomach swirling around? The domains are lining up with the magnetic field, said Miss Frizzle from the other side of the magnet. My what? Your domain, the parts of your iron filing body that make you magnetic. In most things, the domains face in all different directions, but the domains in iron and steel are different. When iron and steel are exposed to a magnet, the magnet's pull forces the domains to all line up the same way, said the Freeze in her science class voice. That's how magnets attract metals. Great, said Arnold, but it still makes me nauseous. I feel like my insides are twisting. That's exactly what is happening, said the Freeze. With great excitement, everyone was complaining about how it felt when the domains were lining up. Ralphie said it was worse than a broken leg. Keisha said it just tickled. Then I overheard what Mr. O'Neil was saying to his class. It was obvious that they were quickly catching up, and that made me feel sick all over again. My body had already turned into iron, then it was practically turned inside out as my domains were lined up. What else would we have to do to win the scavenger hunt? I was exhausted, but DA still had plenty of questions. But how do we know the electrons are lined up? Asked DA. Well, scientists can see electrons in even the most powerful microscope, said the Freeze. But if I push this button, she said as she moved the thumb, we can see electrons. We looked down at our bodies. Rows of blue lights were blinking on and off. What's that? I asked. I lit up all the electrons in the room, said the Freeze. I looked around. There were blinking blue lights everywhere, but the lights were only in straight rows inside of us and inside the magnet. Your electrons are lined up and pulling together. If you look around, you will see that in all the non-magnetic materials in the room, the electrons are just scattered. Cool, now we can answer number 4, said Ralphie, who was holding his scavenger list out with his free hand. When a magnet is in close range, inside of some metals will change. Domains all turn to point the same way, and while the magnet is closed, that's how they will stay. As soon as I can get my writing hand free of this magnetic field, I write it down. I said my left hand was at the very edge of the field and I pulled it away. all my strength and wrote, when iron or steel is exposed to the magnetic field of a magnet, its domains line up. Mr. O'Neilly was pointing at us. Now you can see what a magnetic field looks like. The iron filings create a swirl pattern that shows us the magnet's pull. There are more filings next to the ends of the magnet and fewer in the middle. That's because the pull is strongest next to the ends or poles of the magnet and weaker in the middle. The field makes a circle around the bar magnet. I could see all of Mr. O'Neilly's kids writing down what he said. Any questions? No, sir, said the class in unison. Next, we'll learn why magnets attract metal, said Mr. O'Neilly. Great, we had already learned that. But as long as we were iron filings, we'd be helping Mr. O'Neilly's students learn more about magnets. We had to escape. Chapter 5. Okay, class, said Mr. O'Neilly. Now we are going to watch a videotape that will explain about magnetic domains. I wish could have just learned about domains from a videotape. I whispered to Arnold. So does my stomach. Arnold whispered back. His face was still green. I was glad that I knew about order domains, but I was tired of being an iron filing. At that moment I saw Liz was still her normal size. She was crawling cautiously to the front of the classroom. She was carrying a big horseshoe magnet. If Liz can just crawl to the front of the class, maybe she can attract us with her magnet. Then she can run off with us. A magnet is bigger than the one under this paper, and it should be much stronger, the freeze explained. Let's watch for an opportunity. At that moment, the lights went out, and Andrew moved the cardboard away from his bar magnet. Then he set us down on a deck, far from the magnet. We were free of its force. Now, class, join hands and make a chain since it's dark. I want to be ready when Liz comes. We need to make sure we all go together, said Miss Frizzle. I reached out and tried to grab Arnold's hand, and he reached over for mine, but all of a sudden, our iron filing bodies moved apart with an irresistible force. What? I yelled. It must be more magnetism, but where was it coming from? We were far from Andrew's magnet. I looked around at the rest of the class. Everyone was flying away from his or her partner except for D.A. and Phoebe. D.A. was reaching toward Phoebe's feet, and they flew together. Watch D.A. and Phoebe. That's the way to do it. You have to line up with the opposite ends facing. At that moment, Tim grabbed D.A.'s feet. Arnold and I both rotated ourselves. Then our iron filing feet came too close together. We flew apart again. Now half the class was just stuck together and half was still apart. Ralphie had a hold of Keisha's feet next to us. You have to grab his feet with your arms so the opposite poles come together, said Ralphie. That's right, class. Remember that you have two poles. Your hands are the North Pole and your feet are the South Pole. I stayed where I was. Arnold scooted down so his head was close to my feet. Before he was completely in line, we flew together with the same magical force. Magnetism, everyone was now lining up into one long chain, had to fit. I reached for Ralphie's sneaker, and whoosh, we are stuck together. Good job, class. You have discovered that magnets must attach by opposite pole, said the freeze. Because we are magnetized, we now have North and South Pole. Hey, I said, looking at my scavenger hunt list, I think we know the answer to number 5. We are in each magnet. Here is a big clue. One is north, one is south. Together we are 2. What are we? Magnets have North and South Pole. They certainly do. And that's our answer. I said magnets have 2 poles, north on one end and south on the other. I made a note of the answer in my mind. Since I couldn't write it down yet, I couldn't pull my hands from Ralphie's feet. When I looked up, I could see Liz approaching through the darkened classroom. Now, all she had to do was grab us with a horseshoe magnet and take us away, that we could get busy winning the scavenger hunt. We were ahead. We were done with the question on poles, and Mr. O'Neilly's class hadn't even read that one yet. But at that moment, Mr. O'Neilly turned the lights back on. We froze in our places. Liz scooted under Andrew's chair. Class, the video will have to wait. We have a visitor. To my horror, Mr. O'Neilly was looking at us again. Then he came over to the desk and started brushing a chain of iron filings into his hand. We've been so close to escaping. Then, to my surprise, he threw us on the floor. How disorderly. I thought he didn't like things on the floor. I have invited Mr. Broom, our head of maintenance, to do a demonstration. Mr. O'Neilly sounded pleased that Mr. Broom was on time. He liked things to happen right on schedule. Footsteps were coming toward us. They stopped in front of us. I looked up the giant legs, and there was Mr. Broom, and in his hand was a vacuum cleaner. Mr. Broom will demonstrate a common household appliance, and we will look at diagrams that show how magnets are a part of this appliance. Miss Friesel's class has also been given the same set of diagrams, but I asked Mr. Broom to be sure to come here first. Mr. O'Neilly boomed about us. He winked at his class and Andrew smirked. This doesn't look good, said Arnold. I had to agree with him. So Mr. O'Neilly asked Mr. Broom to come here first. This is supposed to be a friendly contest, said the Fries. She had a funny look in her eyes. Class, it's time to get serious. Mr. Broom leaned over and pushed the switch on the vacuum cleaner. There's nothing like a clean swept, he shouted. This was the last thing I heard before the roar of the vacuum cleaner blotted out all sound. Our entire class of iron filling was sucked into the black mouth of the sweeper. You're never swept away at my old school. Chapter 6. Everybody here? Miss Friesel's voice called out in the darkness. She did a roll call. Everybody answered. Etch, etch. We were in the dirt back of the sweeper, and it was dusty in there. I fell for Arnold, but we were no longer attached. The force of the sweeper must have jumbled up our domains, and we weren't magnetic anymore. We'll never win now, shouted Arnold above the roar of the vacuum. You never know. Miss Friesel's right. We may make a sweeping discovery, I said. Carlos groaned the class as usual. We need the remote, said Miss Friesel. Has anyone seen my bag? We hadn't seen anything since we had been in the vacuum cleaner. It was too dark. But I felt something lumpy under me. At first I thought it was Arnold, but it was the bag. I found it, I yelled. Good work, Carlos. Can you reach in and turn on the remote? My hand located the remote and I flicked the switch. The whole place filled with light. Thank goodness, I said, feeling relieved as I saw everyone's dusty faces. Miss Friesel cleared her throat. I had a feeling she was getting ready to ask a teacherly question. And I was right. Who knows what Mr. O'Neilly meant about the sweeper being run with magnet? No one knew the answer. Well, then, we'll just have to take a look, said our teacher. Follow me, class. We ran after Miss Friesel. Wherever she was going had to be better than this dusty place. The sound of the motor got louder. Miss Friesel slipped into a crevice, and we were right behind her. We were inside the sweeper's motor. Something in the middle was spinning around so fast we couldn't see anything but a blur. We flattened ourselves against the walls. We didn't want to get caught up in that swirling thing. I looked down at the remote and saw a button marked slow. Without thinking, I punched it. Gradually, the whirling crawled to a slow pace. The roaring sound got a lot quieter, and we could see the motor's parts. We even thought we saw magnets. Sure enough, there were two electromagnets in the motor. One was attached to a part that did not move. The other was attached to a part in the middle that was spinning slowly around. Remember how the poles of magnets attract and repel each other? Yes, north poles push other north poles away from themselves, but they pull south poles toward themselves, said Wanda. Magnets can make each other move, said Phoebe. Is that how magnetism makes the rotor turn? That must be how it works. Tim said, DA, reading the book, it says here that the north pole of the stator magnet pushes away the north pole of the rotor magnet, and then it pulls the rotor's south pole toward itself. That starts the rotor going around, said Ralphie. But wouldn't the rotor just stop once the opposite poles were facing each other? Asked Kisha. That's what alternating current is for, said the priest. It keeps the rotor turning. So that's the answer to number 6. These magnets work with electric power. You can turn them off and on. They make a motor run for hours. But with no electricity, their power is gone. Alternating current, or AC for short, just means that it changes directions many times each second. Every time the current changes, it changes the poles in the electromagnet. North pole becomes south and the south pole becomes north. Page 46. It's obvious, I said, I wrote. The kind of magnet that uses electric current and creates motor is an electromagnet. For a while, we watched the rotor turning. It looked pretty cool, spinning like that. Then I wondered about something. But how does a spinning rotor make a sweeper pick up dirt? I asked Miss Frizzle. Let's go see, she said. And she took off again. We jumped up and followed. The rotor was attached to a metal bar called a shaft. The shaft ran outside the motor and was attached to a fan. See, the turning of the rotor makes the blades of the fan turn, said Miss Frizzle. I get it. The fan pulls air into vacuum bags. We could feel a gentle breeze blowing into the sweeper. And when the air comes in, dirt and dust come in with it. Most of the dust danced in the breeze. She pushed the button that said fast. Uh-oh, we heard the roar of the motor again, and the gentle breeze became a hurricane. We were swept into the dirt back again. Then just as suddenly, we heard a click. The roar stopped and the wind died. Mr. Broom must have turned off the vacuum cleaner. Whoa, yelled everyone as we were suddenly lifted up. We slid backward and poured out of an opening. Mr. Broom was emptying the dirt bag. Help! A strong force was pulling us. I tried to stop, but I couldn't. The force wasn't magnetism. It wasn't suction. It was plain old gravity. We were falling. The end.